The first time Karen called the cops on me for existing offensively on my porch. I was drinking chamomile tea and reading a book on bird mating habits. The officer looked embarrassed, muttered something about neighborhood wellness concerns, and left after confirming I wasn't barbecuing endangered species or screaming at clouds. I waved at Karen from across the street. She didn't wave back. Instead, she adjusted her oversized sunglasses like a villain preparing a monologue. I live in a homeowners association-controlled suburb, neat lawns, pastel siding, and the eerie silence of compliance. My house. Same as every other. Except I had a porch. A wide, beautiful wraparound porch that I dared to use. That, apparently, was my first mistake. The next offense came a day later. I received an envelope slipped under my door labeled "Urgent Violation, Property Devaluation in Progress." Inside was a photo of me sitting on my porch, eyes closed, mug in hand, apparently in full criminal relaxation mode. In block letters she'd scrawled, "You are lowering neighborhood standards." I laughed. That was my second mistake. Karen didn't operate like a normal person. She ran the HOA like a dictatorship with a Pinterest board. The rules changed weekly, each more bizarre than the last. No socks visible from the street. Only muted conversation tones allowed outdoors. Porch decor must be seasonally appropriate and spiritually uplifting. I ignored them. That was mistake number 3. Fines started showing up. $25 for unpermitted porch squatting. $54. Audible laughter during non-festive hours. $75 for my chipped mug allegedly signaling moral decay. I appealed. No response. I knocked on her door. No answer. But the next morning, my recycling bin was missing, and I found a flyer taped to my window titled "Signs of Urban Blight, a Cautionary Tale." The neighbors avoided eye contact. Some waved nervously. Others just mowed their lawns aggressively. Karen held the neighborhood in a passive-aggressive chokehold, and no one wanted to be next. I tried reasoning with her at an HOA meeting. It was held in her living room. The board consisted of her cat Chairman Meow, and a very frightened neighbor named Judy who nodded whenever Karen did. "I'm just sitting on my porch," I said. "You're lingering," Karen snapped. "Lingering breeds unrest." Chairman Meow meowed. Judy nodded. Motion passed. I started logging the absurdity. The citations. The invented infractions. The way she looked at me like I was a walking code violation. And then came the letter. Certified. HOA letterhead. I opened it slowly, like it might bite. "Due to continued noncompliance and visible porch loitering, we are recommending your voluntary relocation." Relocation. From my own house. I stood on my porch that night, tea in hand, watching Karen trim her hedges with military precision. She glanced at me once. Smirked. That was the moment I decided to escalate. Not with yelling. Not with lawsuits. But with something stronger than suburban tyranny. I pulled out my old phone. The one I hadn't used in years. Scrolled past numbers I didn't recognize. Then I found it. Blaze. I tapped call. "Hey," I said when he answered. "Remember that legal advice I gave you back in '09? I'm calling it in." He laughed. "Who needs burying? Just a porch party," I said. "The kind HOA Karens don't forget." The line crackled. "Say no more." I hung up. Sipped my tea. For the first time in weeks, it tasted like freedom. 3 days later, I heard the distant rumble of engines around noon. Not the sharp rev of teenage rebellion, but the slow, rolling thunder of veteran cruisers. One by one, they pulled into the neighborhood, leather, denim, chrome, and beards that had survived multiple economic recessions. And there, leading the pack, was Blaze. Same handlebar mustache. Same vest stitched with Order of the Third Brake Light. And the same easy grin that said he was here for fun, not felony. Not yet. Karen stood at her mailbox, frozen like someone watching a bear walk into a wedding. I was already on my porch, rocking in my chair, holding a fresh mug of tea. Blaze walked up, gave me a fist bump, and sat down next to me. No words needed. Then the rest followed. 5 bikers. 10. Then 15. Folding chairs unfolded. Coolers popped open. Music began, soft jazz, surprisingly tasteful. One of them pulled out a book of poetry. Another handed out smoked turkey legs to passing neighbors. A man I hadn't spoken to in 2 years asked if he could join. I handed him a chair. Karen stormed back into her house like she'd been personally offended by the air itself. That evening, the HOA app lit up with panic posts. Unregistered guests visible on Maple Drive. Excessive leather garments. Inappropriate food smells in common airspace. Karen uploaded a photo of my porch, now filled with relaxing, smiling people. Her caption: Lawlessness in progress. By the next morning, she had taped a new flyer to my door. Cease and desist, gang activity suspected. I framed it. The thing about these guys, these so-called outlaws, was that they were shockingly wholesome. One helped old Mrs. Connolly carry groceries. Another fixed a broken sprinkler system. They offered free motorcycle rides to neighborhood kids, with helmets. Karen tried to spin it as vehicular grooming, but no one bought it. Even Judy looked confused when Karen made her repeat it at the next HOA meeting. Blaze, ever the diplomat, handed Karen a peace offering, homemade blackberry jam in a mason jar wrapped with a ribbon. She refused to touch it like it contained anthrax. She didn't call the cops this time. She called a city code enforcement officer. He arrived in khakis and a confused expression, looked at the porch, then at Karen, then back at the porch. Is this a community gathering? No, she said, voice tight. It's an invasion. He shrugged. Looks peaceful to me. He left with a turkey leg in hand. The neighborhood began to shift. A couple down the street brought out their own porch chairs. An elderly man rolled out a charcoal grill and made burgers for everyone. Kids drew chalk motorcycles on their driveways. For the first time in a long time, people talked. Laughed. Stayed outside past dusk. Karen's fury fermented. She issued a new list of emergency regulations. No folding chairs of unapproved color. No impromptu gatherings of more than 3 adults. No smoked meat products visible from the street. Blaze read them aloud to the crew with the gravity of scripture. Then he smiled. Time for a car wash. They held it the next day. Right in Karen's driveway. With permits. City approved. Charity funded. Half the neighborhood showed up. The bikers washed cars, posed for selfies, and donated all proceeds to the local animal shelter. Karen called the police again. They came, saw the donation jars, got their squad car washed, and left with fresh iced tea and a pamphlet about feline rescue programs. Karen's front lawn started wilting. The universe has a sense of humor. Her pristine hedges browned, and one of her gnomes fell over and chipped. Meanwhile, our porch now had potted plants, solar lights, a wind chime shaped like a middle finger. Blaze named it Freedom's Landing. Karen tried one last tactic. She emailed the HOA under a new alias. Concerned resident number 37, accusing me of harboring a motorcycle cult. No one responded. Judy left the group chat. Chairman Meow stopped attending meetings. Then came the ultimate betrayal. The mayor's office issued a proclamation declaring the last Saturday of every month Porch Freedom Day. 4. Advancing community spirit, shared space usage, and inclusive neighborhood activities. Karen nearly fainted at the mailbox when she read it. That night I sat on my porch, surrounded by friends, food, and laughter. Blaze leaned over and said, You sure this is all you wanted? No fire, no property damage? I grinned. Just a porch party. He nodded, reached into his vest, and handed me a custom patch, a porch swing embroidered in silver thread. Beneath it the words, Unbothered. Untouchable. Unmoved. Karen posted one last message in the HOA forum. Mark my words. This is not over. She was right. It was just getting started. Karen's retaliation started before sunrise. At 5:43 a.m., motion-activated sprinklers soaked every motorcycle parked near my yard. The next morning, 3 new sprinklers appeared on her roof, aimed like anti-aircraft turrets. At 6:12 a.m., they activated again, hitting Blaze's ride directly. He looked up, squinted at the roof, and calmly adjusted a tarp over the bike. No words. Just patience. That's what terrified her most. No reaction meant she wasn't getting to us. Then came the noise complaints. Dozens of them. Filed anonymously but written in the same brittle tone as her Facebook rants. Low-frequency vibration harassment. Undisclosed jazz activity. Unregulated porch-based congregation. The city sent someone to investigate. He arrived in sunglasses, took one look at the porch, and asked if we had any extra barbecue. We gave him a plate and a thank you card. He stayed 2 hours. Karen escalated again. Security cameras installed on every corner of her property. Drones, actual drones, buzzed over my porch like angry wasps. She'd finally upgraded from passive aggression to full-blown surveillance. Blaze just smiled and waved at every drone. Someone taught a parrot to say, "Smile for the HOA," and we made it our unofficial mascot. Then she filed a lawsuit. Not just against me, against the entire biker club, my HOA account, and the mayor's office for negligent complicity in cultural erosion. Her case was a disaster. She showed the judge screenshots of bearded men smiling and claimed it was intimidation. She played audio recordings of neighborhood laughter and labeled it auditory terrorism. The judge leaned forward and asked, "Do you have any evidence of actual crimes?" Karen replied, "Yes. Vibes. Case dismissed." She came home that evening to find a handmade thank you banner strung between 2 houses. "Thank you, Karen, for bringing the neighborhood together." Underneath were signatures from 26 residents, including Judy and Chairman Meow. Someone drew a little doodle of her holding hands with Blaze under a rainbow. She ripped it down at midnight, but the photos had already hit social media. By then, the bikers had organized weekly workshops. Engine maintenance Mondays. Sausage smoking Saturdays. One guy, Tank, started teaching yoga. He was surprisingly limber for a man with neck tattoos and biceps the size of hams. People came from other neighborhoods just to attend. The HOA was powerless. Karen's bylaws were ignored like spam mail. Her last-ditch effort was a neighborhood-wide warning letter, hand-delivered, accusing me of psychological manipulation and weaponized relaxation. I made copies and handed them out as flyers. The coup came quietly. A vote. Unscheduled, but entirely legal under HOA subsection C7. Board members may be removed by majority residential vote. The quorum gathered on my porch. 17 households represented. Karen wasn't invited. She came anyway, fuming and furious, only to be handed the tally sheet. 15 for removal. 2 abstained. None opposed. Judy read the result in a shaky voice, then offered Karen a tiny cupcake with a sad face drawn in icing. She slapped it out of her hand and stormed off. The HOA was declared dissolved. New bylaws were adopted by unanimous consent. 1. Porches are sacred. 2. Meat may be smoked at any hour. 3. Complaining about jazz is punishable by public mockery. Karen, stripped of her authority, attempted a final move, sabotage. She snuck into my yard at 2 a.m., planting plastic, violation, signs like landmines in my flower bed. Unfortunately for her, we had cameras too, mounted discreetly behind the gnome with sunglasses. The footage showed her crawling, hissing at plants, whispering, "Blight begins at home." At one point, she tripped over a garden hose and face-planted into a shrub. The video was uploaded to the neighborhood group chat before sunrise. By noon, it was viral. Karen versus the porch, final round. People added music, captions, slow-motion edits. It aired on a local morning show. Even the weather guy laughed so hard he had to hand off to traffic. Karen threatened lawsuits, but by then, no one cared. The neighborhood had changed. We were louder now. Happier. Messier in a human way. Kids rode bikes in packs. Adults gathered in driveways. Porch culture had infected every block. Someone opened a lemonade stand and made $300 in a weekend. Someone else built a community smoker out of bricks and backyard dreams. Karen locked herself inside. Curtains drawn. Mail uncollected. Rumor had it she tried to start a new HOA with just herself and her cat. No one joined. Even Chairman Meow defected, sauntering across the street to Blaze's porch, where he now lived full-time under the alias Sir Claus Sallet. I never celebrated publicly. Didn't gloat. Just sat on my porch, day after day, with my tea and my chair, as the world came to me. Blaze would nod from across the street. Tank taught kids how to change tires. Jazz floated on the wind like freedom notes. Karen had tried to control everything. But you can't choke the life out of a neighborhood and expect it to thank you. She brought war to a porch. And the porch won. The footage of Karen planting fake HOA violations in my yard played on loop at the next neighborhood event. It started with chuckles, then belly laughs. Someone brought popcorn. Someone else handed out printed bingo cards with squares like trips over hose, talks to plant, and uses clipboard as weapon. The entire block turned it into community theater. I didn't even have to speak. Karen had done the talking for me, caught in high definition, whispering threats to a lawn gnome and issuing citations to hydrangeas. She tried to file a privacy complaint. The city dismissed it, citing the public right to entertainment. Then came the hearing, technically a formality, but Karen demanded one. She wore a suit, gloves, and sunglasses indoors. Claimed persecution, sabotage, and emotional injury caused by porch-based hostility. The committee, which now included Tank, Judy, and the mayor's nephew, listened politely before showing the video again. This time, with dramatic music and subtitles. Karen stormed out before it finished, declaring the neighborhood a moral landfill. As part of the final ruling, Karen was officially barred from issuing complaints, citations, or even verbal criticisms. She was also assigned 60 hours of community service at the newly founded Biker Community Pantry, sponsored by Porches for the People. Her photo, scowling next to a donation bin labeled Canned Beans for Hope, became the logo for our neighborhood's volunteer flyer. The HOA charter was officially dissolved. Its remnants repurposed into kindling for our first Freedom Bonfire. We held it in my front yard. Neighbors brought their old violation notices and fine warnings and tossed them into the flames like tax documents after an audit. Someone even roasted marshmallows over the charred remains of the approved lawn color guide. Blaze read a speech off a grease-stained napkin. We gather here not just to burn paper, but to incinerate pettiness. The neighborhood changed, but not in the way Karen feared. Property values didn't plummet, they stabilized. People started helping each other. Swapping tools, baking bread, picking up groceries for seniors. Someone started a free little library made from an old mailbox. One kid painted a mural on their garage door that said, "Porch life equals best life." Even the realtors started advertising our block as the friendliest street in the county. Karen didn't move out. She stayed, watching from behind closed blinds, her empire reduced to a house she no longer ruled. Occasionally she ventured outside, usually escorted by a sigh. Once someone offered her lemonade. She refused. Another time, she tried to give Judy a handmade pamphlet called Restoring Order, a return to sanity. Judy used it to wipe barbecue sauce off her fingers. Chairman Meow never returned. He now had his own tiny biker vest and an Instagram account managed by Tank. People sent fan mail. Local businesses started using his likeness for bumper stickers. My favorite. Claus Sallet rides free. Eventually, we installed a plaque at the foot of my porch. Bronze. Hand-etched. It read, "Here sat the first rebel who fought for the right to sip tea in peace. In memory of the HOA wars, and in honor of the Porch Rebellion." People took photos with it like it was a national monument. Kids gave it high fives. Visitors asked what happened here, and we told them the truth. One woman tried to control the neighborhood, and the neighborhood found joy instead. Blaze stopped by weekly. Still rocking leather, but now with reading glasses and a paperback tucked in his vest. We'd sit in silence, watching life roll by. Porch life. Pure, unfiltered existence. Not performative. Not pruned to death. Just people being people. Karen's final act came quietly. One evening, as the sun dipped below the rooftops, she walked to the edge of her driveway and stood there for several minutes. She didn't say a word. Just watched the block buzzing with conversation and laughter and jazz. Then she went back inside and closed the door slowly. It didn't feel like surrender. More like acceptance. I sat back, tea in hand, the same chipped mug from the beginning, untouched by time or tyranny. The porch creaked beneath me, familiar, proud. I didn't need revenge. I never really did. All I needed was to be left alone on my porch, and now, that was a right no one dared challenge. In the end, Karen didn't get exiled. She got humbled. The neighborhood didn't collapse, it blossomed. Because sometimes, the loudest form of rebellion isn't shouting or fighting. It's sitting on your porch with a mug of tea and refusing to move. And if that lowers your property value? Good. Let it drop. Let it crash. Let it bury the paperwork in ash and feed the hydrangeas. Because out here, we don't measure value by resale potential. We measure it in laughter, in friendship, and in freedom. One porch at a time.